Teisha with Shalom TV's News Update. The National Director of the Anti-Defamation League, Abe Foxman, expanded on his views regarding President Obama's nomination of Chuck Hagel as the next U.S. Secretary of Defense in an op-ed piece in Wednesday's edition of Haaretz. Init, Foxman says that while Hagel would not have been the ADL's choice for the position, he believes that there is, quote, little reason to assume that relations between Israel and the U.S. will be diminished under a Hagel tenure at defense, unquote. Foxman says that Hagel's history in the Senate showed a recognition of Israel's security needs as well as support for U.S. defense aid to Israel. Where Hagel's views could have negative impact on Israel, Foxman says, are the ones that deal with Iran. Since Hagel has said that he opposes U.S. military action against Iran, Foxman says that a Hagel appointment could lead to a misperception by Iran that America may be taking that military option off the table. This, Foxman says, would be a disaster. Foxman also reiterated his call to Hagel to explain and apologize for his previous comments regarding the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, which Hagel referred to as the, quote, Jewish lobby. Several media outlets are reporting that President Obama will nominate White House Chief of Staff Jack Lew to be his next Treasury Secretary, possibly as early as Thursday. The reports reference an unnamed source familiar with the process. Lew, who is an Orthodox Jew, previously served as director of the Office of Management and Budget under President Bill Clinton. He also was the late Democratic House Speaker's Tip O'Neill's aide. Lew would succeed Timothy Geithner, who has said that he plans to step down from the position at the end of this month. And staying with Geithner, the current U.S. Treasury Secretary met with Israeli Finance Minister Yuval Steinitz on Monday in Washington, where the two agreed to establish a joint forum that would monitor the effects of sanctions on Iran. Steinitz's office said that the Permanent American-Israel Forum would periodically assess the effect of sanctions on the Iranian economy. They would also review ways to increase the economic pressure on Iran. Steinitz reportedly conveyed to Geithner at the meeting that Israel believed more sanctions were needed, as well as a credible military threat, in order to convince Iran to halt its nuclear weapons program. The Vatican rejected comments recently made by the leader of the Society of St. Pius X, which referred to Jews as, quote, enemies of the Church. Bishop Bernard Fillet, superior of the Traditionalist Society, made the comments at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Academy in New Hamburg, Ontario in December. Vatican spokesman, the Reverend Federico Lombardi, said on Monday that the remarks made by the breakaway group were unacceptable, saying, quote, it is impossible to speak of the Jews as enemies of the Church, unquote. Lombardi added that the Catholic Church is deeply committed to dialogue with Jews and stressed that the Vatican's position on this was clear and well known. The Vatican's comments regarding Bishop Fillet were echoed by several Jewish organizations, including B'nai B'rith International and the Anti-Defamation League, who also applauded the Vatican for their rejection of the inflammatory remarks. B'nai B'rith also said they were compelled to speak out against Fillet's statements, which they said promoted old and dangerous forms of anti-Semitism that contravene the historic friendship between the Catholic and Jewish communities. The Anti-Defamation League denounced Fillet as, quote, an unrepentant anti-Semite. And finally today, Jewish day school enrollment did not decrease as much last year as many thought it might due to the state of the economy. According to a new enrollment census from the Avichai Foundation, over 83,000 children attended either centrist Orthodox, modern Orthodox, conservative, Reform, or non-denominational Jewish schools, which is down by just 0.3% from the previous year. Enrollment at centrist Orthodox schools increased slightly, as did the total number of Jewish day schools. There was a small decrease in the conservative movement Solomon Schechter schools of 3.6%, as well as in Reform schools of 4.8%. However, overall enrollment was relatively stable, and Avichai Foundation Chairman Arthur Fried called the new data heartening, saying it demonstrates quite clearly that despite the economic difficulties of the past 3 years, parents see the value proposition in day schools as outweighing the economic burden. The census was conducted by Marvin Schick, a consultant for the Avichai Foundation. Avichai is a private foundation endowed by Zalman C. Bernstein and is committed to the perpetuation of the Jewish people, Judaism, and the centrality of the State of Israel to the Jewish people. And that's Shalom TV's news update. I'm Teisha Bader.